Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at how other living things impact those incredible compounds that plants produce.
Plants' secondary metabolites.
Right, those secondary metabolites. We all know plants make them for tons of reasons, like for medicines and also to protect themselves.
Exactly. Think defense, but also think communication, even attracting pollinators. It's a whole chemical language.
Yeah, it's really wild. And we've got a bunch of research papers here that dig into this. We're going to be focusing on the living things part of the equation. So how do things like, fungi or insects or even other plants actually change the way these compounds get made?
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize just how much the environment, the living environment, shapes what chemicals a plant produces. We're not just talking about soil and sunlight here, but literally who else is living in and around that plant.
So let's jump right into it.
Yeah.
And maybe the most obvious place to start is with the whole defense thing, right?
Yeah.
So when a plant gets attacked, does it just sit there and take it?
Not at all. When something like a fungus or an insect attacks a plant, it triggers a whole cascade of responses. Think of it like this. Plants have these incredible sensor systems that can detect specific molecules from pathogens. Like when a fungus comes knocking, they recognize what are called PAMPs, or pathogen-associated molecular patterns.
So it's like an alarm system, like, oh no, intruder alert.
Precisely. And then you have similar things for herbivores too, HAMPs, for herbivore-associated molecular patterns. So basically, the plant knows it's under attack, and that sets off all these internal signals.
So what happens next? Is it call 911 for the plant police?
Well, not quite. But it does start producing a whole arsenal of chemical defenses. And this is where those secondary metabolites really come into play. So you've got things like phytoalexins, which have antimicrobial properties to fight off those pathogens.
So that's like the plant's version of antibiotics.
Yeah, exactly. And then there are things like feeding deterrents, which make the plant taste bad or even toxic to insects that try to munch on them. One of the papers mentions how nicotine in tobacco plants actually increases when insects start feeding on them. It's like a direct chemical counterattack.
Wow, so the plant's actually upping its defenses on the fly? That's really cool. And then there's that other thing, this sort of indirect defense where plants release volatiles to attract the enemies of their attackers, right?
Yeah, that's fascinating stuff. So think about it. A caterpillar is munching on a leaf, and the plant releases these volatile compounds into the air that basically act like a dinner bell for a parasitic wasp that likes to lay its eggs inside caterpillars. Pretty clever, huh?
That's amazing.
Mm.
It's like the plant is calling for backup. And then there was that example about grapes and resveratrol, right? Something about how when they get attacked by fungi, they produce more of it.
Yeah, exactly. Resveratrol is this compound that's gotten a lot of attention for its potential health benefits for humans. But for the grapevine, it's a key part of its defense system. When a fungus attacks, the plant recognizes those PMPs we were talking about, and boom, it starts pumping out resveratrol. And what's really interesting is that this production isn't just localized to the site of infection. The whole plant seems to increase its resveratrol levels, almost like it's preparing for a larger attack.
So it's not just about fighting back. Plants also team up with other organisms for their benefit, right? Like with those mycorrhiza fungi in the soil.
Ah, the mycorrhizae. This is where things get really interesting because now we're talking about symbiotic relationships where both the plant and the fungus benefit. So these mycorrhizae form these intricate networks of fungal threads that essentially extend the plant's root system. They're way better at absorbing water and nutrients from the soil, particularly phosphorus, which can be really hard for plants to access on their own.
So it's like the plant is getting a serious upgrade to its root system.
It's like a turbocharged root system. And this enhanced access to resources can then lead to an increase in the production of other beneficial compounds by the plant, including things like phenolics and terpenoids. And it's not just about providing nutrients either. Some research suggests that the fungi themselves might release signaling molecules that can directly influence the plant's metabolism and what compounds it produces.
So like the fungus is whispering to the plant, hey, make more of this. It'll be good for you.
Yeah. It's a remarkable partnership. Then you have the rhizobia, those nitrogen-fixing bacteria that hang out in nodules on the roots of legumes like beans and peas.
The nitrogen is like plant food, right? Like super important for growth.
Absolutely. Nitrogen is a key building block for proteins and all sorts of essential molecules in plants. But plants can't just pull it out of the air, even though nitrogen gas makes up most of our atmosphere. That's where the rhizobia come in. These bacteria have the amazing ability to convert atmospheric nitrogen into a form that plants can actually use, a process called nitrogen fixation.
So the plant is basically getting a direct supply of fertilizer delivered right to its roots.
Exactly. It's a win-win situation. The plant provides the bacteria with sugars and a nice place to live, and in return, it gets a steady supply of nitrogen. And this nitrogen boost can then impact the production of nitrogen-containing secondary metabolites, things like certain alkaloids, which often have potent biological activities. It also affects the whole carbon-nitrogen balance within the plant, which can influence other metabolic pathways and ultimately what compounds it produces.
So by teaming up with these microbes, plants are not only getting bigger, but also potentially changing their chemical profiles.
Right.
And then there's that other group of microbes, the endophytes, those that live inside the plant tissues.
Ah, yes, the endophytes. These guys are really fascinating because they live within the plant, between cells, or even inside the cells without causing any disease. It's like they're part of the plant's internal ecosystem. And what's really cool is that endophytes can produce their own secondary metabolites, some of which can actually help protect the host plant from pests or diseases.
So it's like having a built-in bodyguard.
Yeah, kind of. And it gets even more interesting. Some endophytes produce compounds that are of huge interest to us humans, particularly for pharmaceutical applications. And one of the most famous examples of this is paclitaxel, better known as Taxol, a powerful anti-cancer drug.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that one. It's used to treat a lot of different cancers, right?
Exactly. And originally, paclitaxel was isolated from the bark of the Pacific yew tree. But it turns out that certain endophytic fungi that live inside the yew tree can also produce paclitaxel. This was a major breakthrough because sourcing paclitaxel from yew trees was really challenging. They're slow growing, and harvesting the bark can kill the tree. But if we can cultivate these endophytes, it opens up a whole new sustainable source of this valuable drug. So sometimes the plant's chemical abilities are actually outsourced to these microbial partners living inside them. It's like the plant is saying, hey, I've got this great place to live. You just focus on making this awesome compound and we'll both benefit.
It makes you wonder how many other amazing compounds are out there hidden inside these plant micro partnerships. So, we've covered a lot of ground here. From plants defending themselves against attackers to forming beneficial partnerships with microbes, it's clear that living organisms play a huge role in shaping the chemical diversity we see in the plant kingdom. And I think this has some really big implications for us humans, too.
Absolutely. Understanding these biotic interactions, how plants respond to their living environment, is crucial for developing more sustainable and resilient agricultural practices. If we can figure out how to harness these natural defenses and partnerships, we could potentially reduce our reliance on synthetic pesticides and fertilizers. Plus, it opens up exciting possibilities for discovering new medicines and other valuable compounds from plants and their microbial partners.
So it's not just about the plants themselves, but about the whole community of organisms that interact with them. It's like we're just beginning to scratch the surface of this incredible web of life and the chemical secrets it holds. And for you, the listener, I think the big takeaway here is that nature is way more interconnected than we often realize. Plants aren't just passively sitting there. They're actively engaging with their environment in all sorts of fascinating ways. And by understanding these interactions, we can unlock a whole new world of possibilities for a healthier planet and for ourselves. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.
See you then.